This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution, and today I'm joined all the way from New Zealand, Mr. Edwin Massey, who is General Manager of Sustainability for New Zealand Winegrowers. How are you today, sir?
Very well, Jamie. No, it's a great day here in Marlborough.
Now, for all of those listeners and viewers, would you mind explaining exactly what a General Manager of Sustainability does with New Zealand Winegrowers?
Yeah, sure. New Zealand Winegrowers is the industry organisation that represents all grape growers or commercial grape growers and winemakers in New Zealand. So we have members, right across the board, from individual farmers who grow grapes on their farm, right through to multinational wine companies or like Constellation or Pernod Ricard. So we represent everyone. We've got a range of roles, including advocacy, marketing, research, and sustainability. And sustainability is at the core of our industry, and that's the team I look after. And our key roles are running our sustainability certification program, SWINS, or Sustainable Wine Growing New Zealand, biosecurity, and promoting innovation and sustainability through our Sustainability Guardians program. So yeah, three key teams, and we've got a key role to embed sustainability within the New Zealand wine industry.
I have just been reading some of the literature regarding the food miles concept and how that applies to the New Zealand wine industry. And I found it rather fascinating. And again, that question keeps on being asked. How can a wine be sustainable if it's being shipped all the way from New Zealand? Perhaps you would like to explain that to me.
Yeah, sure. So New Zealand it is in a long way from many of its major markets. You know, we've got key markets in the United States, Canada, the UK, and Europe, and you know there is a fair distance to travel. And like our argument, and you know the evidence suggests that with sustainability, you know, food miles is only a small part of the overall sustainability picture.
Yes.
So when you think about sustainability, we've got 6 key focus areas: people, waste, pest and disease, climate change, water, and soil. And when you think about New Zealand wine, primarily, we have the energy that goes into producing New Zealand wine comes from a really renewable energy sources. So much of our national grid is powered by hydro, so a renewable energy source. And then when you talk about shipment, it's shipped via generally large ships or freighters, and they are very, very efficient users of carbon, and you can ship a lot of wine for relatively little carbon when you compare it to other transport options.
Yes.
So when you combine our overall sustainability, the use of renewable energy sources, and then that carbon shipment, when we compare it to other shipment or other transport methods, the overall the relative carbon emissions are actually pretty low.
Now, normally when people are talking about food miles, they're really just speaking about that transportation, right? But you've been looking at it from a much broader perspective, taking that sustainability into every element of the wine's production to its distribution. Could you tell me a little bit more about the evolution of that concept within New Zealand, when you really started thinking about it and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. So sustainability has long been a part or a concept or really, really important to New Zealand wine, critical. New Zealand's had a reputation for the image of a clean green country for a long time. Yeah. And our industry, as a key primary producer, we've got 40,000 hectares nationally, really wants to I guess, ensure its social license to operate by really focusing in on the sustainability of our primary production practices. So in the 1990s or 1995, we launched Sustainable Wine Growing New Zealand, and that really started off as a program about recording data about our environmental management. So you think about chemical use, you think about water use, you think about energy use, and over time, we've learnt from that program. Last year, we really reshaped it around those 6 focus areas that I previously mentioned, and climate change, in the last quarter century has become really front and center, of industry and government sustainability efforts, and it came to our view that and what we were recording in our energy pillar was not sufficient, and so the industry set a goal of being carbon neutral by 2050, and really SWINS is going to be a key source of data collection to point us towards that goal. And once we have SWINS has 96% of our vineyard area in its membership, and over 90% of wine produced in New Zealand is made in a SWINS certified winery. So we will have close to a universal measurement of key aspects of carbon emissions across our industry, and we're pretty proud of that. And it really will help us to zero in on the key sources of emissions and help us to manage them over time.
In the years that have passed since you began this sustainability program in the 90s, have the successive governments been on the same page as you? Some more than others, I would imagine.
Yeah, look, we do look to engage with our governments on sustainability issues as much as we can. As you said, governments change and wax and wane in terms of their focus on sustainability. However, in the last decade, and particularly since the change of government here in 2017, we've seen a real focus on sustainability in the climate change space, yes, and also in the water space. And so through the data we record I can go into a bit more detail. The government is really concerned about cleaning up New Zealand's waterways, and ensuring that they're can get back to a swimmable level, as one of the government's key goals. Now, the wine industry in and of itself is actually not a key contributor to the water quality issues like some of the other primary industries in New Zealand. Yes. However, it's really important that we do our part and play our role in improving water quality and the efficiency of water use in New Zealand. The government has put in place some principles around farm environment management plans to record particularly the influx of nitrogenous chemicals, right across the primary sector, and we want SWINS to be our vehicle, to collect that information. So in that sense, we're looking to really partner with the government to meet those goals that they've got. In other areas of our sustainability program, like for example in biosecurity, part of our pest and disease area, we officially partner with government where we co-invest in key priorities to manage the risk of biosecurity incursions in New Zealand. We've done that since 2017, and it has worked really well for us. And so we've got in the sustainability space, we've got a really proactive relationship with government, and we worked as closely as we can with them to ensure that we meet the targets that we've met and that have been set.
Well, it would be remiss of me not to mention the current pandemic situation that we're in, and it appears that New Zealand are the gold standard when it comes to mitigating and managing this pandemic. What are your thoughts about where you're at in New Zealand right now, and how do you see the future developing? Because you're kind of you're trapped on the island right now, or the islands. Yeah.
You're exactly right. So COVID was a real shock to New Zealand and to the wine industry as a whole. It happened very, very quickly. We went from sort of business as usual to isolation, pretty quickly. The government did put in a position of go hard, go early, and so our borders closed. New Zealand went into lockdown. The wine industry itself was an classed as essential industry, so we were able to harvest last year in 2020, which was great because it turned out to be a pretty special harvest due to the weather.
I've heard about that.
As an industry, we put in some pretty, you'd say, specific restrictions so that harvest could proceed, consistent with what the government wanted to protect community safety. And our industry did really, really well, and it's something that we're really proud of, in that they got through harvest without any or potential to spread disease. And from that, we slowly came out of that lockdown situation, and with borders closed, our geography helps us, probably more than any other country in terms of keeping COVID out. But with solid regulations at the border, we've managed to, I guess, prevent the community spread of COVID, and that has meant we've been pretty lucky, and life has continued almost as normal for much of the population. Look, I mean, there's been significant impact on some of our sectors. For example, the tourism sector,
of course,
which has been focused on international tourism. But for our industry, we predicted the worst, but hoped for the best. And amazingly, lockdowns in other countries is we've actually seen a significant increase, in exports over that time, over the last year, and it's New Zealand exports have gone through that $2 billion mark. For a number of our smaller members, that lack of tourism, has been challenging, because they rely on overseas visitors, to really come in. But New Zealand domestic tourism is increasing.
I've heard,
and with the measures in place at the border, we really want to continue to promote domestic tourism so that our industry across the board can get back to how it was before COVID.
I have to ask a question. Are these domestic tourists willing to drop $60, $70 a bottle for a Central Otago Pinot Noir the way that many of the visiting tourists would?
Oh, look, I mean, when you talk to some of the boutique wineries that are selling the super premium products, there's been a drop off in that cellar door sale. Many, and it's meant, what's that horrible word, pivot, but people have changed their approach with, some direct to consumer online marketing, other ways of drawing, sales, on the from the cellar door side of things. But no, there's been an impact, and there's no way to say that there hasn't been. But it has forced adaptation, I guess you'd say. And we are hearing some good stories of the results of that adaptation.
And you're basically back to normal, apart from the fact you can't leave the country. You're living life as normal, I believe.
Yes. So there's no internal travel restrictions within New Zealand. We need to wear masks on internal domestic flights and public transport. But yes, we can leave the country, but in coming back, you'd need to go into managed quarantine, and there is quite a significant what would you say, a backlog of quarantine space, and so you know, it would be a very time-consuming and expensive process, you know, to travel overseas and back safely. And so, yeah, essentially, much overseas travel has essentially stopped.
Yep. Yeah. You know, you're giving me some hope for the future here, because in sustainability is something that's very close to my heart. And with the ongoing pandemic, there are some people, you know, I've witnessed some countries, I'm not going to name them, but it's almost like sustainability and all of these positive changes that were being made have been tossed asunder to deal with this this pandemic. But to see that you're sticking to your guns and coming out through the other side of the pandemic gives me some hope for the future right now.
No, I mean, sustainability is absolutely core to the New Zealand industry, and you know, we the pandemic, you know, has been a real shock, but what it hasn't done is changed, you know, that fact that sustainability remains at the core of the industry. You know, we see it as a differentiator for New Zealand wine. You know, why do we do sustainability? Well, it's good for our reputation overseas. You know, we want, you know, we use it to really differentiate ourselves in the market. 2, it's critical for our social license to operate at home. You know, we need to be sustainable. You know, it's government is increasingly telling us, you know, you as a primary sector organized industry, you know, you have to be responsible. You have to be sustainable. Thirdly, you know, sustainable practice can also can be extremely rewarding financially. You know, if you're making decisions that limit, you know, your expenditure on key resources to ensure you only, that can benefit your bottom line. And fourthly, you know, it's the right thing to do. So, you know, in terms of you know, your impact on the world and you know, its future. You know, so with those 4, I guess, goals in mind, you know, we know that continuing to focus on sustainability is absolutely critical, you know, for our industry.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining us at Good Food Revolution today. I've just noticed that you have an Iron Maiden poster on the wall beside you there. Just saw
Indeed.
That right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time today. Really appreciate the chat, and we'll catch up with you sometime soon, I hope.
Thanks, Jamie. Really appreciate it. Good to talk.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.